Welcome to CPA Diversity. This is Christopher Johnson, Mr. CPA Diversity, and we've got another CPA discussion for you with a special guest of ours. I hope that some of you out there in the community are familiar with my guest because she has her own YouTube channel doing a similar thing, trying to bring more awareness to the opportunities in accounting and all the things that we can be doing to inspire others from diverse ethnic backgrounds to get into the profession of accounting, because we all want more diversity in the accounting profession. And my guest name is Miss Jacqueline Anderson, CPA. She has a YouTube channel by the name of the Black CPA Lady. And I want to welcome her to CPA Diversity. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for inviting me over to your channel. Such an honor and pleasure to be here with you today and discuss diversity in the accounting profession, specifically CPAs. So yes, my name is Jacqueline, but just about everybody calls me Jackie. So you're welcome to do, and anybody else out there that I need to come across, so just say Jackie.
Awesome, good. So Jackie, I'm happy we're having this meeting. You gave me the honor of being on your channel one day, and it had been on my mind to circle back and do the same, because what I really like is that you are someone else out in the YouTube space that is looking to help others that are of African American descent or just from any other diverse ethnic background to consider joining accounting as their profession. Right. And I like to start off my first question on these interviews a little different with with asking, what is the biggest thing that you've taken away in your career as a CPA for why other people should want to go into accounting? Like in your journey, what makes you passionate about the community education of the profession and why people should join?
Well, from my perspective is somewhat unique, since I didn't necessarily start out on the accounting journey, and definitely not becoming a CPA. That wasn't even in my career path or even thought of. But the educational aspect is because of all the opportunities that I've since learned about and became aware of now that I am in the accounting profession, and specifically CPAs, and the lack thereof representation for Black CPAs. So the education part is for those who are accountants, bookkeepers, tax preparers. I am passionate about trying to encourage those to carry on their educational pursuits so they can become CPAs, because of course the salary increases, but your breadth of knowledge in what you can do or where your career can take you just by having those credentials behind you is just unlimited. So that's where my passion comes from, because I want others who actually had a passion about accounting, because like I said, that's not where I started in my career or even in undergrad. So for those who say, I do want to be an accountant, don't stop there. It's like, do you not understand or realize what doors can open for you if you go on to achieve becoming a CPA? So that's where my passion is, for those who are really in it. That's what they do. I kind of fell into it in a sense.
Yeah, tell me how that worked. How did you fall into accounting?
Well, it was from a good friend who was also my neighbor, who was switching gears or careers early in her career path. She was a teacher, and that's not what she wanted to do. And of course, I was just kind of chugging along in my job, because my background is government, and I majored in finance, which is closely related to accounting. But as we know, they are two different worlds. If you are a business major, you know there's a definite difference between a finance major and accounting. But to the general public, they may not know. But anyway, she was interested in being an accountant, and she was telling me about her career aspirations, which I was somewhat familiar with because I majored in finance. And she went to local university, and because by that time I was already out of undergrad, had my master's, so I had no interest in going back to the classroom. I was done with school. But again, she wanted to major in accounting. She knew my background. So we just used to chit chat, talk about what opportunities she might pursue. But as she was going to college or taking her classes, we found out, because I wasn't necessarily pursuing a degree, I could take some classes at a lower rate, not the market rate. So I started taking the classes because just to motivate her and keep her going. And then too, I found that I'm a lifelong learner, and I wanted the challenge. So in there, to support her. And then when she introduced me to being a CPA and what you can do in the accounting field, and I was like, what? Okay, so but of course I did not have all the hours necessary to sit for the CPA exam, because that was her ultimate goal after she explained it to me. And that's how I somewhat fell into accounting and going down the CPA track. But needless to say, because she was pursuing it as a degree, her studies, she wasn't able to keep up because she was in the pocket. But I'm one of those people, once I start on a mission, I'm not, nothing will throw me off track. I'm not stopping until I accomplish the goal.
I got it. So then did you make your undergrad? Did you major in business as an undergrad and then have to go get more hours to make sure you could sit for the exam? How did that work?
Right, and that was the dilemma. Right, I majored in finance, so I did not meet the requirements, the minimum number of accounting hours to actually sit for the exam. So that's why I was able to take the classes along with her. She had a study partner, and at the same time, I was accumulating the necessary hours. I think I needed 30 hours at the time to even sit for the exam, because again, I took the finance route, so that may have meant I took maybe one accounting class that was actually coded accounting. The rest of them were all finance. So they did not count. So I had to take all of these accounting classes to accumulate the 30 hours. You're right. And I just fell into it, not realizing, now there's a whole nother review course that just allows you to sit for this monster exam. Yeah. So that opened my eyes. So, and I didn't know any Black CPAs. So that was another thing that intrigued me. It was like, we are so underrepresented. Then I started digging, trying to figure out why is that. And then I learned about all the obstacles and barriers that were placed in front of us, when I say us Black people, even up until early 2000s. So that fascinated me more. So that motivated me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it.
That's amazing. So then once you realize how unique it was for someone who identifies as you, was a Black woman, to be a CPA, it really motivated you to want to go ahead and pursue the CPA license. Is it because you would be like rare in the marketplace as a CPA?
It was, and again, back to being passionate about people who I met, even some coworkers who are accountants. It was like, this is what you actually do, your career field, and you don't want to be the cream of the crop, the pinnacle. I was like, if I can do this, you can definitely do this. So at the same time, I was motivated to show those who are actually working in this field, you can achieve this. If I can do this, and I don't want to discount it or make it seem like I did it on a whim, but I just want people to understand that if someone who was not even interested or had a clue about being a CPA could pursue this and achieve it, you darn well can do this if you are working in the field, or that's your chosen profession right out of high school. You want to be an accountant. So don't stop at a staff accountant. Make all the money. Be the CFO.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a big test. So a lot of people, I think the dilemma is that you already go through all this schooling, you get your degree. Right when you get your degree and you have, let's say you're someone who majored in accounting, you could actually go into the workforce. And then if you start working, and a lot of people at that time need to, since they just finished college, you have to make that decision of working and studying at the same time. So, and then not to mention, studying for the exam is a big task. It's a big project. I just give you credit for being a finance major, identifying this opportunity, but then just having the drive to be able to say, I'm going to do this, and I know it's a lot, but I'm going to continue to pursue through and become a CPA. So let me ask, since you passed the exam, and we're going to get into your study process a bit, but let me ask this question. Since you passed the exam, what do you think it did for your career in terms of maybe, what you may have been doing before you passed versus after?
Well, again, I'll say I work in government, so I've been working at the same place for 20 years for the most part. Since I graduated college or relocated to Georgia, I'm at the same place. And career-wise, of course, government is somewhat limited. The upward mobility is limited. I will say that. Versus what could happen or the potential in the private sector. So I'm gonna say that from the very beginning, which I understand that, but there's some other factors that have, or some other components that have factored in my decision to stay within government and some of the work-life balance and
Right.
versus public accounting or the private sector. But I would say I did get promoted just by having those credentials, but it has limited me income wise. Although I will say I make a decent salary, it pays the bills, but I do know if I jump ship or went out, spread my wings, as I said, public accounting or private sector, I probably can make maybe double what I'm making at this point in my career. But again, I like the work-life balance my current job or that organization offers, because I do have a daughter, and at the time as I was going through that, she was in middle school, so I needed to be more hands-on. And once you factor all that in, family dynamics and just life happening, it presented the ideal situation for me to remain where I worked at. But now that she's out of college, has her own career, doing her own thing, I might just spread my wings and see what these three letters can do, present, go conquer the world now and make the money.
Good. I get it though. That's a very important thing to consider. Work-life balance and making sure that you have the time that you need to take care of your family, take care of your personal life, while also work and be able to do what you do in your career. Everybody has their own story and their own reasons for why they make the decisions that they make.
And again, it offers that work-life balance, or if you are now pursuing it mid-career, it offers some free time or more free time to study versus if you were in that true 9-to-5 grind, deadlines or pressure, stressful work environment. It was stress-free. So if you want to talk about studying, that was ideal situation to study for this CPA exam. So I took advantage of that. I was able to actually get in 3 hours of study during the daytime, plus 2 hours at night. So maybe 5 hours a day, but the job presented itself where I could actually get 3 hours of study time in during the workday, which is invaluable and usually unheard of. So that helped me to accomplish this goal too. So
very good, very good. So then, can I touch on the study process a bit? So, what was your study process like? Like, how many hours did you have to put in a day, and how long, did it take for you to study for your exam? And I know this could be kind of a touchy question, because when did you have to take the exam? Did you take it when it was like how it is right now, where you could take a section at a time, or did you have to take it when it was like all in one day? I'm not sure. I don't.
Oh yeah, I'm not that old. And remember,
I don't want to offend you or anything like that. But I just know people take it at different times. I didn't know.
Right. But again, I wasn't acquainted or became familiar with being a CPA. Again, remember later on in life, so to speak, I was out of college. But I would say the study time, that was enormous. I had to invest a lot of time, because remember, I did not major in accounting, and I intentionally didn't, just based on, I remember my freshman year, the professor said accounting is the complete opposite of what you think it is, debit and credits, from what you think. And that was enough for me to say, oh no, I am not interested in this whatsoever. So I had to teach myself accounting, especially for the financial and reporting section. I basically, instead of studying, I was truly understanding the concepts. So that took a lot more time than probably the average CPA candidate. So overall, it took me almost 4 years. And again, information was limited, and maybe that just may be because I didn't know any CPAs, I was new to the world, or it may be just because I was Black and uninformed and didn't know any better. I wasn't exposed, and the access was limited about where we could go as business majors, or specifically where accounting can take you. So I'm gonna own that, just being from the backwoods of East Texas, just didn't know. Yes, I'm from the Piney Woods, Northeast Texas, country, very rural. So again, that's where I'm coming from too. Not seeing anybody, didn't know, you just limited what your thought process, so and what success looks like.
Yeah, I get it, because it's like, for me, coming from Miami, Florida, I knew my environment, I know my friends, I know my family, but nobody was a CPA. I did know someone who worked in accounting, but I had no deep interest in her career. But it was,
Right.
I was exposed to it some. I was exposed to it some. She had worked payroll. Learning about, going into college, you learn about accounting, you learn about all kind of stuff when you're in college, right? But I think the biggest thing for me as a CPA is how much more I had to, my mind, it kind of like I reprogrammed my mind a bit when you go through all that deep studying, right, of the material. You're talking FAR, which is a wealth of knowledge in its own, but then you got 3 additional sections after that that are just as thick in terms of topics and concepts and principles and things like that. So once you kind of worked your way through all of that studying, you do, in a sense, open your mind up to a lot more, right? Your mind knows how to take in information a bit more. You start working, you start experiencing things, and you find that this whole new world kind of open up. So at least in my experience, and it sounds like in yours as well.
Right, just from all angles, if you can imagine. And so studying was, to me, was pretty much just having to buckle down and understand debits and credits, T-chart, our journal entries. I had to truly get back to the basics. So when you think you are avoiding something, don't. You're going to find yourself right back where you are supposed to be. So that took me a lot of extra time. And I started with the hardest one. And at that time, there was really no information out there about how to approach this exam the way it is now with YouTube and the internet. It was just very, very limited. So I was somewhat on my own. Of course, I had no peers or nobody to reach out to. So I was in the thick of it. So that's, again, I just had to motivate myself and be determined to say, I'm going to figure this out, which I did. And it took, so if I'm thinking I'm studying probably 5 hours a week, 5 hours a day, 35 hours a week. So early on, and I made some of the common mistakes. I took a whole year to study for FAR. That now looking back, that makes no sense, and that you're doomed if you don't have an actual schedule and target to take the exam. But again, I didn't know.
Yeah. But you know what? I would say that that's not bad. That's not bad. You had a job, you were working, right? You're a mother, you're taking care of a child. Now, I think it depends on who you are, because to me, that didn't sound unreasonable to take a whole year. I took a whole year and I studied for all 4 sections. So I can see the differences, but because you were on your own, there wasn't as much information out there. You hadn't really been exposed to it, because it wasn't like you were someone who majored in accounting. I majored in accounting. I was exposed to a lot of things through my 4-year career, or a 4-year journey through college. You had a whole another foundational set of understanding in terms of what you learned in college, and had to really start from square one with understanding accounting. So I think that makes sense that you took your time. It's not a small feat to do, right, to pass the exam. So it sounds like you went and did about 5 hours a day, and consistently. Did you do any practice exams and things like that?
Well, yeah, but I will say that was after I finally got that schedule and routine. This was after failing for multiple times and figuring out I didn't need this routine to stick to. So that's what helped me become successful, when I realized I have this time during the day and develop a schedule that I was able to stick with. So early on, it took almost a year to study for FAR and bombed it. I realized, okay, that's not working. So overall, I think the exam, the various 4 parts, 13 times before I finally passed all 4. So again, if I can do it, anybody can do this. But above that was me teaching myself, and then understanding that this is not an exam necessarily of intellect. This is a test taking strategy. So again, I had to learn how to manage the time and understand what the test entailed, because I had no one to go to bounce things off. I didn't know anybody who had gone through the process recently. At that point, I was meeting people who had been in the career or a professor, but they couldn't tell me anything about like you say, the new exam format. But go ahead, what are you gonna say?
No, I gotta stop us right there. We have to talk about this, okay? First of all, 13 times that's wow. That's like, I understand that people have different stories, and I've interviewed a few people, and they told me how many times they've attempted it. And I'm just gonna say 13 times is quite a bit of times, right? To take the exam.
So.
But I think as much as I was just having another conversation with someone and they were saying what we need to do is own the fact that sometimes we don't hit the mark. We don't hit the mark. But what speaks more volumes is that you still pursue paths after 13 times. So can you just tell me, like, what was the mindset when you were like trying and failing and then saying, I'm still gonna go after it? Like, what did you have to start really changing? And I know you said you had to change your study schedule, right? You had to get more specific times in, but even like from a mindset perspective, because I think that's something that people would really.
It's a book called The White Collar Profession. If you've heard of it, by Dr.
Yeah.
That changed my life. Aside from just pursuing accounting and CPA, but that showed me as Black people, the world, society has put obstacles in our way, and we've overcome so much. But just hearing or reading the stories of those first licensed CPAs in the United States, it was just unbelievable how they were able to overcome, and they persevered. And one lady waited, I think, 30 years. I was like, oh, there's no way I'm not going to get these credentials. That she was able to get the education, work experience, but she couldn't get anyone to sign off on her work experience. But she was working, she was an expert, and she waited that long. That once I read that book, that spoke to my soul, my spirit. That gave me, that lit a fire under me like no other. So that's when I really buckled down and said, I can do this. I will do this. I'm going to do this. So my faith, that leads to me saying, now I can do anything. There's nothing I can't do, because being a child of God and then being from enslaved people who are oppressed, and now being part of the 1%, you better get out of my way, because there's nothing Jacqueline Anderson can't achieve or won't do if she just puts her mind to
it. You winning out here. That's amazing.
And like you say, the 13 times that it took.
Yeah.
And that's why I continue to go take a stab at it, go back in and try it again. Because it was expensive. Don't get me wrong, the test fees I was paying out of pocket, even though my job was willing to reimburse me, it was only for the sections I passed that I got reimbursed. So those, I was just eating those other testing fees, when I was failing.
13 times. Was it all in one section? Did you like take and not pass multiple different sections? And did you find, like, after you passed the first two, you kind of understood what you had to do to get through the rest of them? How did that work?
Oh no! Oh, this is a process or a story in and of itself, by the grace of God. So that, again, this is me saying, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So no, it was okay. I've been trying to pass far, not making any progress here. I mean, I got within 1 point, then I started regressing. So I said, forget it. Switch gears. Let me just jump to. So by that time, I'd taken it 4 times, I think. So I said, forget it. Oh, let me try another section. So I had BEC, or I ordered both FAR and BEC at the same time. So I had those materials, the BEC, studied that the least amount of time and passed it right out the gate.
The BEC section?
Anyway, but again, the clock is ticking now. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to pass this? FAR is just hanging over my head, but I just started tackling the other sections. So I took audit next, but it took me 2 times. So it was a retake with audit. So I took that one twice. Same thing with regulation, 2 times. So between BEC, regulation, and FAR, that was 5 tests. So the other one, so it was me on the back end tackling FAR, because the 18-month clock is ticking on me at this point. It was like, okay. And I knew I did not have the bandwidth or the capacity to retake any sections that I had previously passed. So it was like do or die for me. And again, I felt motivated. I had read that book, White Collar Profession, by Dr. Teresa Hammond. I was ready to go. I was like, I'm going to achieve this. It is not going to defeat me. So, and I finally, so when it came down to the wire of me losing credit for BEC, that was the window, the testing window. I finally passed.
So did you have to buckle down? Did you have to buckle down on FAR in that little bit of time when you knew you were about to lose your credit for BEC?
Well, I changed up because I had the Becker materials. I knew that test bank before it even popped up on the screen. So I had memorized that. So I had to switch the testing materials. I got another test bank. So I invested in another review course for FAR. I had to do something differently because that wasn't working. And I felt like I was understanding the concepts, but I just didn't have enough multiple choice questions to go through to test my knowledge. So that was what I did on probably the last 2 set times that I took the exam, and I was feeling confident, thinking, okay, I got this, and just praying too, like, Lord, you didn't bring me this far.
You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it.
Lord,
but
please.
you know what I really enjoyed about hearing your story, your study process story, was that you had to really adjust to what made it work for you. You know, I think most people think, you know, either you're going to try to do the path of least resistance and try to leave far last and take like maybe BEC and then audit and then reg or whatever. Or, you know, other people are like, let me get far out the way, right? And then you go far and then you try to go down the path where you knock the other sections out. But it's, I think sometimes you can get stuck in, I need to do far first. And if I don't, and I fail, it's not for me. Right. And then you just end up not doing it. But instead, what you did was say, I know I haven't been having the best success with FAR, but let me get some momentum going. Let me study for BEC. Okay, now I've got BEC under my belt, and I know that clock is ticking because you have like only 12 months or something to get the rest of them done after you pass the first section. So you did that, and then you went and you took other sections and then just circled back to FAR. And then also what I really like is that you told yourself, you were honest with yourself, and you said, I need to invest in other material so that way I can really challenge myself and give myself a best chance of passing this section when I go to the exam. And I don't know that a lot of people would have done that, like to even invest as much as you have, because each section costs money, to buy the study material costs money, and you're paying out of your own pocket. It's a true testament to how much you really wanted it. And I would just have to give my hats off to you for being that driven, because a lot of people are not that driven.
Oh, well, thank you. And I will say again, back to those who are in the profession and actually doing the job and passionate about it, it pays for itself exponentially. So I understand there is a financial investment, but once you achieve it and you are credentialed, you will make that money back 100,000 times over. It is so worth that debt or investment.
And I have to agree.
And I understand people have, you never know what financial status somebody's in or their budget, but it's worth going into debt. I can't say that enough. It will pay for itself. It will.
Yeah, exactly. It will. But don't take it lightly, right? Don't try to go in and try to do your best. I always say, if you're going to take the exam, before you sit, try to know every single problem that you can know before you actually go try to take and sit for the exam. Because we don't want to have people have to take it over and over and over if they don't have to. But everybody's story is different. So I'm glad to hear. I really enjoy hearing that. I got to ask a question after you're done. Go ahead, say what you're going to say.
I was going to say, because the exam fees alone were over $3,000 when I did the math on 13 times. And I think it was about $250 to $275 a pop. But it didn't matter to me. I was in a zone that I would say I did a video about it. I was just swiping the card, even though I was keying in the information, but in my mind, it didn't matter. Another swipe, because I'm going to get this. I'm getting this. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think it sounds like you just understood the value it was going to bring to your life once you were certified. So that makes you want to keep going and doing it. Let me ask you this. How did you feel when you got all 4 parts done and completed? Walk me through that moment.
Whoa, that moment, I do remember logging in, but I will say, and I saw you sent me some questions in advance, and I saw this. I think back, because it was a bittersweet day. So I do have to tell the story since you are interviewing me. Yeah. That was the day I had, and I knew the score release would be that day or that weekend, midnight. But that was on a Friday for me, and I'll never forget it because, again, this is do or die. It was like either I will have passed 100% or I'm about to lose credit, and I'm gonna need 2 exams to finish.
Right,
So I'll
right.
be 100% or 50% in my mind, right? But that day, my coworkers and I had just gone to a hospice facility to basically say goodbye to one of our good coworkers, and it still makes me emotional. I might just start crying now, but again, I cry all the time. But I think about that day because we went to see her, and we knew we probably wouldn't see her again. But that was the day that the score release came out. So I'll just never forget that because I was so elated on one end, but at the same time, and it was like just coming to grips with, oh my goodness, what ultimately, or what happened inevitably, probably the following week on Wednesday, she passed away. But her name was Daryl Sessions, and she was such a support and cheerleader for me during that time because we were actually on the same team at my job. But I will say, when I found out that I passed, my daughter was there with me, so she knows I was screaming. I was in shock, like, oh, it's over. But I screamed so much, I lost my voice. I didn't even get my voice. I know on Monday, people couldn't even understand what I was saying. My voice didn't come back to almost a week later.
But I get it because it was such a happy moment for you at that time, to experience and have passed after all you have put in, So yeah, and it's a great feeling once it's accomplished. I think the thing is that it's just not as fun to go through the process of studying and taking the exam. And for some people, they have to take it like yourself, you have to take it multiple times, and it's a challenge. But I always like to ask that question because I want people to understand that it's an investment up front, but once you're past, it's a worthwhile investment and a great feeling.
It is, especially if you work in accounting. Again, I work in government, so it's a little different, but your earning potentials are pretty much unlocked and unlimited. And that's why I don't understand why some people who stay, I hate to say settle for, because I understand a lot of factors go into that decision where you are in life. But I just don't understand why that's enough when you can make a gazillion dollars with a CPA. And sometimes I keep myself because I'm sitting in government, but that's a whole nother conversation and situation.
There's a lot of opportunity in government too. I think it's just the way you position yourself, but that's something we can, I guess, talk about. But I want to ask, I guess, now just to transition from how you became a CPA to your channel and the things that you're doing with your platform, because one of the things I really like with your channel is how many CPAs I see you interview, and I know that there's a wealth of knowledge and experience that's sitting on your channel. So I'll make sure that we link your channel in our comment, and maybe even, however we can get people to go to your channel. But just, maybe talk to me about your channel and what you hope that people will gain from watching your content.
Okay, so that channel was born out of there being a lack of information or us being highlighted, Black CPAs being highlighted. So I started the channel years ago, but I relaunched it during the pandemic when I had a lot more free time on my hand. But I started because, again, when I was in the thick of it, I did not have any resources, and there was nobody out there in the public eye or just even online that looked like me and could relate to some of the challenges in the Black community when it comes to taking this exam. So that's where it stemmed from that, and then trying to bring us from behind the scenes or out of the shadows, because by nature most accountants are maybe kind of reserved, introverted, just don't necessarily need the spotlight. But I think that's part of the issue with us being underrepresented, because although we're out there, you don't see us. So that's what I want to do. I want to shine a light on our accomplishments, because, again, having CPA behind your name is a big deal. It is the hardest, most difficult credentialed exam in the world, on top of being a lawyer, doctor, any other profession. So it's like, why not come from behind the scenes? But I do have some issues or struggle with us stepping from behind the scenes and in front of the camera. So again, there's a wealth of knowledge there, and you see a few people, because it's estimated that it's 5,000 of us out there, less than 1% which again, that just breaks my heart that we're represented such a low number. But I think we could maybe increase that if more people saw that we exist.
And same thing with CPA diversity, right? I think the important thing is to have us have discussion, have communication, share stories. Because what I'm finding is that people who identify with us are really drawing a lot of value, and it's a refreshing thing for them because they get to see people who have gone through the process versus being maybe in a classroom or maybe sitting at their desk and thinking, I know that this is a big, daunting task. I don't know that I'm going to I don't know that I have what it takes to see it through, you
Right.
know? But to have us say, look, we were just like you've been saying all this call. If I could do it, anybody could do it, right? I feel the same way. I feel like I didn't come from any special circumstance that allowed me to have an advantage. My only advantage, which was the same advantage that you had, was that we both had the drive and the commitment to say, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to do it. If everybody who was in, and I always encourage anybody who's in accounting and who has the thought of becoming a CPA, just make the commitment and don't walk away from it because it's going to be worth it, you know?
Right.
So I think, you know, for those watching, go to Jacqueline's YouTube channel. It's called The Black CPA Lady is the name, right?
Right.
If you type that in YouTube, and we'll put the link there, but check out her interviews. I've seen a couple of them, and it's good to just hear other CPAs and their stories and their journeys, because if we share our story, I know it's helping to motivate the next person who's on that path. And I think that's the way we get the number up. At the end of the day, I think a lot of this is about changing that 1%, which I think might be anywhere between, if you look at all the diverse backgrounds, I think it's maybe somewhere between 1 to 3. I don't know, 1 to 3%. But for Blacks, I think for African Americans, it's like 1% right now. I've been seeing a lot more people taking and passing the exam. I don't know if you see on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who announce that they're taking it and they're passing. And I see that it's a lot of diverse candidates. So I know we're on track. But I just appreciate, for one, you inviting me onto your channel and having me share my story. So if you're all watching, go to her channel and watch my interview.
Because I will say you took a different, not the ideal route that we think in accounting, but how it works with data security. So check out Mr. Johnson and how he's applying the CPA and accounting with security, data security.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You're reminding me, are you familiar with the changes that are coming with the CPA exam?
Somewhere where you talk about where you can concentrate in certain areas.
Yeah, they're doing it to where you can concentrate now, and basically they're going to have the same 3 sections, which is FAR, reg, and audit. But then now they're breaking it out into 3 different sections where it could be like, you can be a tax specialist or a business reporting specialist or an information systems specialist.
Oh, okay.
And they saying that the CPA license is not going to say you're this type of person. You're still just going to be a CPA, but you can choose where you kind of want to have some subject matter, deeper subject knowledge, right? Subject matter knowledge. So, and that's kind of like, I did that before they actually broke it into the exam. I work in that kind of information system space. So, but it's good to just see that, you know, not only is the industry in accounting trying to get more of us to pursue the CPA license, but that also the people that administer the license and that kind of provide that overarching look is thinking about how the world is changing and how we have to understand how to be CPAs in this new world, you know? And I think that's what the changes are about. So look, I know that we've been talking for a little while. I think that, you know, this was a great discussion. I think people are going to really like hearing your story because I'm inspired by your story. Okay. Like, wow, you know, to not have the background of accounting, to kind of just have this exposure through someone else, and then to go on the journey of taking the exam, even though you didn't quite have a path of your own to follow, just says a lot about who you are and what you have to accomplish in this world with your channel and whatever other endeavors you choose to go on. So I'm sure that we'll be talking more. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more opportunity for you to inspire others through your channel or whatever other opportunities come through that. And I appreciate you talking with me today. And I hope that we can do this again maybe sometime in the near future.
Oh, definitely. And thank you so much for inviting me. And I appreciate what you're doing and sharing and exposing us to what all the opportunities are out there and how to diversify the profession and some of the opportunities from different people you interviewed and organizations and programs that you've highlighted about the opportunities to help us to diversify the profession. So thank you for taking time and concentrating on that and bringing it to the masses.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just tell you to just keep going, just like I'm doing. We are doing a good thing, and I know that what we're gonna do is help a lot of people. And there's a lot more work to do, but we're gonna get there, right? One person at a time. So,
All right.
okay, that's Miss Jacqueline Anderson, CPA. Thank you for joining the discussion.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for having me.